Ani Bojo Wache. My name is Carly Dokis, and I'm an associate professor in the anthropology program at Nipissing University. I'm originally from Treaty 7 territory in southern Alberta, and I began my career there as a journalist. And I was drawn to anthropology because it allowed me to utilize diverse methods to understand the complexities of the stories that people were sharing with me. So I began my career working in Western Canada at a time of the oil boom and in Western and Northern Canada, and I began working with Dene communities in the Northwest Territories who still and continue to rely on land-based subsistence practices, but who are experiencing immense pressure to develop extractive industries like oil and gas and mining. And I lived in Dene communities for 3 years, working with them on the impacts of extractive industries in the north. I moved to North Bay in 2008 to take a position in the anthropology program here. And I continue my work in the Canadian subarctic. And I also work with Anishinaabe communities here in our region on issues around water insecurity and contamination, environmental impacts. And I'm doing a life history project with people from Dokis First Nation to understand experiences of social change over time. So anthropology as a discipline is interested in understanding the human experience across time and space. So that means we're interested in understanding how humans have lived both in the past and in the present. So students in our program will explore a diverse kind of array of ideas, everything from understanding how humans have related to their environment and over time, including what we can learn from that to understand the contemporary climate crisis. We'll understand and look at diverse ways of how human beings have made a living and understand how that relates to our contemporary economic and political relationships, including things like economic insecurity and increasing precarity and globalization. We look at different cultural conceptions of health and illness, how people have understood healing and disease over time, how they've treated them, and what we can learn from that in order to incorporate them into building healthier societies. We look at relationships between human and non-human species, so things like animals, plants, germs, fungi, and how that has changed over time. And we're really interested in understanding the historical and contemporary relationships between local processes and global processes, including things like global flows of ideas, of people, of microbes and germs, and the intersections between colonialism and capitalism and how that has shaped our contemporary world. In our first year, students take an Introduction to Anthropology course. And in this course, students will draw on the 4 fields of anthropology. So they will look at biological anthropology and understand how our biology as animals shapes human experience. We look at how our relationship with material culture, so what we call archaeology, and we'll understand how we can utilize archaeological methods and archaeology to understand the human experience over long depths of time. We do a section on linguistic anthropology, or the relationship between language and culture, and understand how language has shaped the human experience. And of course, we also work with contemporary societies in cultural anthropology to understand the contemporary experience of people across the world. From there, we move into our second year, where we have specialized courses in archaeology, biology and culture, language and culture, and a course that we call the ethnographic imagination, which looks at how we can work with contemporary societies and understand the human experience through ethnography. And then from there, we specialize in our third year into more specific kind of topical areas. We have courses in things like extractive industries in the Canadian North, death and dying, environment and globalization, debt, work, and anxiety, which is often popular with students who are experiencing those kinds of things themselves. And so we kind of finish our program by allowing students to specialize in areas of their interest. So the best part of the anthropology program here at Nipissing University is our people. We have faculty who are award-winning teachers, who are established and actively engaged researchers. We bring what we research into our classrooms so that students can get a taste of what that feels like, and we train them in various forms of research methods. But our faculty are invested in our students. We're a relatively small program. We take pride in the fact that we are really student-centered, and so we can work with students hands-on, one-on-one, in ways that you just simply can't in larger programs at other institutions. My favorite part of being a professor is the students. I love working with students. I love introducing them to new ideas and encouraging them to see the world through an anthropological perspective. I love it when I get emails from students, as I often do, even years after they've graduated, when they email me and say, oh, I encountered this thing in my everyday life that I see differently because of my anthropology training at Nipissing University. I encountered something at work that I can see differently or work with differently because of my anthropological training at Nipissing University. I love it when students can begin to cultivate what we call an anthropological perspective, and they can employ that in their everyday life. I think it's really important to first sit down with students and help them to identify what their goals are. They come to university and they are exploring a diverse array of disciplines and being introduced to new knowledge. And I think it's really important to work with them one-on-one to identify what it is that they want in their academic training, and then what it is that they want after their academic training. What kind of career goals might they set for themselves? In our program in anthropology, we work with students on, if they decide they want to go to graduate school, we work with them on applying for funding. We work with them on their applications to graduate school. We invest a great deal of time in our students and help them to achieve their goals. If they're interested in pursuing diverse career options, we sit with them and talk about what they need to do in order to reach those goals, and we tap into our collegial networks in order to see if we can find them placements, for example, or connect them with people working in the field. The anthropology program at Nipissing University has specific kind of courses that involve hands-on learning, like our qualitative research methods course, where students will design a qualitative research project of their choosing. I typically teach that course, and I work with students to go through the processes of designing and executing a research project, right from coming up with an initial idea to applying for research ethics and being trained as an ethical researcher, to doing interviews, participant observation, and then analysis and writing results. So the entire course mimics what you would do either in graduate school or in a professional capacity in research methods. So they can then take that training and apply it to their future research, whether it's in the public sector or it's in graduate school. We also offer an archaeology field course where students will go out and actually participate in an archaeological excavation. And then as a second component of that, they can take a course where they learn how to catalog and record the artifacts. So it prepares them for a career in archaeology. But more than just our specific kind of courses that are hands-on learning or experiential learning courses, we actually incorporate experiential learning into all of the courses that we teach. So we have a number of really interesting assignments, again, encouraging students to reflect and think upon their own kind of cultural processes. So we have students do things like a commodity chain assignment where they have to actually research a commodity that they're interested in to understand the various social and ecological and economic relationships that follow that commodity from cultivation or production all the way into hands of consumers. We have students do a garbology assignment where for a week they and their roommates record the kinds of material culture or garbage that they put into the trash, and then they analyze what that says about their own kind of cultural processes and ways of relating to the environment or consumption or conceptions of hygiene, right? So it's very interesting to kind of step back and look at your own practices through the lens of anthropology. So students are engaged in specific courses that have hands-on learning, but we really incorporate these kinds of hands-on learning throughout the program. And students will often come back to us after they graduate, even years down the line, and say, that garbology assignment that we did in our first year anthropology course really opened my eyes to how I live. My favorite course to teach, I have a few. In fact, I love teaching all of my courses. But if I had to pick two, I would say my qualitative research methods course, which I've already spoken about, which involves students undertaking a qualitative research project from design to execution. Some examples of this are students have done ethnographies of shinny hockey in North Bay. They've done ethnographies of ice fishing. So it's very diverse, and students kind of go out and explore their own interests. So I love teaching that course. Another course that I love to teach is a course called Indigenous Peoples in the State. And I enjoy teaching that course because I am able to introduce students to the social and economic and political relationships that have structured the relationship between Indigenous peoples and the state in Canada. Many students are just coming to this to learning this information for the first time. And I think it's crucially important that the anthropology program in Nipissing University participate in that process of decolonization to help others understand the history of colonialism in this country. We've had graduates go on to work in diverse fields, everything from the North Bay District Health Unit to refugee resettlement programs. We had students go on to be teachers. We've had them work in the public service, some work in marketing and in private business. And we also have a number of students that have gone on to graduate school who have been fully funded with SSHRC scholarships, and also to law school. My favorite spot on campus is the trail system. I love, my office overlooks the back creek and the trails in the back. And during my lunch hour, I often will go out and spend half an hour walking the trails, and it really helps me to kind of recenter myself. My favorite spot in North Bay is anywhere along the shores of Lake Nipissing.